Good evening, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you'd like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first order of business is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And Commissioner Baker is joining us by telephone this evening. So welcome, Commissioner Baker.
Thank you.
The next order of business is to approve the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or commissioner so requests, in which case the item will be removed and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless otherwise noted. Is there anything needs to be removed?
Madam President, I would move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, on the regular agenda, we have the Three Corners Ranch preliminary plat. It's a request for approval. We will begin with a staff presentation. Little.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, for the record, Christy Little, Planning Review Supervisor. This is a decision briefing for Three Corners Ranch. This is a Meridian preliminary plat application.
I'd have to move the mic up or move a little closer.
Got it. This is an annexation with a rezone from RUT to R4 and a preliminary plat for 45 single-family residential lots and 9 common lots on 31 acres, located in the middle of the square mile between Chinden and McMillan and Eagle and Locust Grove. This development is estimated to generate approximately 425 vehicle trips per day, with 45 trips in the PM peak hour. I know this is a busy map, but this was just to illustrate the local street connections to the arterial system. So the square mile was developed over several decades. With the exception of the northwest quadrant, this area has a highly connected network of local streets with multiple access points to the arterial system as circled in yellow. There are, as noted in the staff report, 5 local streets intersecting McMillan Road, 3 intersecting Locust Grove, 2 intersecting Chinden, and 1 local street intersecting Eagle Road. The local street intersections, as I said, are circled in yellow, and the blue line in the northeast quadrant and the blue circles highlight where the collector in Bristol Heights intersects Chinden, and then there's a signalized intersection at Eagle Road. The red circles indicate local street connections to this site. Shandy Drive is a local street. It's on the north property line right in the middle. This substreet was required with Fuller Ranchettes, which platted in the 60s. Shandy Drive is accessed off of Chinden Boulevard only and has no other street connections. When Chinden is widened in the future, it's anticipated that Shandy will be restricted to right-in, right-out operations. Barkley Street is the substreet at the east property line. This was required with Bristol Heights, which this phase platted in 1999. Dvorak Avenue is the substreet at the south property line, was required with Vienna Woods and final platted in 2002. Stafford Place is the easterly substreet at the north property line, also conditioned with Bristol Heights, and this phase platted in 2003. Sweet Valley Avenue is the westerly substreet at the north property line, which was required as a condition more recently with Three Corners sub number 2, which final platted in 2014. Some of the commissioners may remember at that time that ACHD raised concerns about the ability to extend that substreet in the future because there was a home being constructed on this site at that time. And at the time of that application, the engineer for that subdivision provided information to show that the street could be extended in the future. And the homeowner at that time also provided a statement acknowledging that that substreet would be extended in the future. And then Dunwoody Court is not a substreet, but it is a local street connection to this site. And it was approved in 1990. When Dunwoody was platted, that applicant, developer at the time, actually requested a waiver of curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and requested construction of a rural street. So that's why there is no sidewalk on Dunwoody. Instead, there's the rural street with 2 lanes and paved shoulders. So this is the layout that the applicant submitted with their preliminary plat application. As I mentioned, the site has 80 feet of frontage on Dunwoody Court, and the only other street frontage to the site is from the 5 stub streets. In order to connect the stub streets to meet policies, but to develop the gated community that the applicant desired, the applicant is proposing to construct a perimeter road to connect all of the stub streets, with the exception of Sweet Valley Drive at the northwest property line. The applicant did not propose a public street connection through the site between Barkley and Dunwoody to prevent the potential for east-west cut-through traffic, which could potentially significantly increase traffic on those streets. Because the square mile was developed, as I mentioned, over several decades, it was developed without a collector street network, and therefore staff is also concerned about cut-through traffic in that east-west direction through the middle of the section, particularly off of Barkley, and is supportive of the private streets as proposed. While the applicant's proposal to extend the stub streets meets district policy as designed, with the exception of not extending Sweet Valley Drive, the stub streets will connect to the perimeter road. That perimeter road will add over a half a mile of new public roadway for ACHD to maintain, and staff's determination is that the perimeter road itself will provide little public benefit. ACHD does have policies with regard to connectivity and stub streets, that if there's a street that is stubbed to a property line, it's supposed to be extended or somehow formally terminated when development adjacent occurs. Connectivity is positive in many ways, in that it reduces vehicle miles traveled, it increases pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, reduces the need for additional access points to the arterial system, and promotes efficient delivery of services, trash, mail, intra-neighborhood traffic just between families and schools. Additionally, ACHD policy states that the average daily traffic on new and existing local streets should typically be less than 2,000 vehicle trips a day. For new streets that are stubbed to connect to adjacent land in the future, the allowable ADT for those streets will typically be no more than 1,000 vehicle trips per day. When stub streets are connected and properties are fully developed, local streets should not exceed 2,000 trips a day. And these, just as a reminder, are planning thresholds and not actual capacities, but none of the impacted roadways are nearing those volumes. At the request of staff, the applicant provided this layout just for illustrative purposes, which eliminates the perimeter road along the east and the south property line. The private roads within the site are still accessed from Barkley and Dunwoody. The stub street at the south property line is terminated in a cul-de-sac and provides pedestrian connectivity. Along the north property line, staff is recommending a local street to connect Sweet Valley Avenue to Shandy to Stafford Place. The subdivisions to the south and east of the site are well connected, and as shown, there's a very well connected local street network. The subdivision to the west, as I mentioned, has access just to Locust Grove, and that's Dunwoody, but was developed as a larger lot subdivision. And then, of course, Three Corners to the northwest of the site, which platted in 2014. There is a school site right there at the corner with Locust Grove. And Shandy and Stafford connecting will provide an indirect, but nonetheless local neighborhood connection. City of Meridian staff is recommending that all of the stub streets, including Sweet Valley Drive, be extended and connected with the perimeter road. They do not concur with our staff recommendation to the commission this evening. So just as order of business for tonight, for the folks in attendance, the applicant will have up to 10 minutes to provide their testimony. I do want the commission to know that the applicant is going to be proposing another layout tonight, and staff has had the opportunity to review that. And if you have questions, we can certainly provide comment to you. Anyone that's representing an HOA may have up to 10 minutes. Individual testimony is limited to 3 minutes. And at the end of all the testimony, the applicant can have rebuttal. City of Meridian staff was invited to attend tonight in case you needed their perspective. They did decline that invitation, but their planning and zoning hearing is next week on April 4th. So staff recommends approval of the report as presented and provided to you, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Commission, are there questions for staff at this time?
Yes, I have one.
Go ahead.
Christy, in your opinion or the staff's opinion, why would the perimeter road be of little value?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, the perimeter road is meant to connect all of the stub streets. The applicant was trying to do that with the intent to meet policy to connect stub streets. But because their internal roadway network is a private street connection, particularly in this southeast quadrant connecting Barkley, let me go back to that. This perimeter road that would connect Vorak to Barkley, there's already significant local street connections that were constructed with Vienna Woods and with Bristol Heights. And you can get from point A to point B over here today, and there would be actually pretty minimal, very limited use of this section. And same with the northern section of that perimeter road. There are local street connections all throughout Bristol Heights, and just the added maintenance for that significantly long road was part of staff's reasoning.
Thank you.
Madam President, I do have a question. What was the rationale for taking Sweet Valley off as connecting clear through? Was that on the original that the engineer spoke of, the exhibit originally that was presented and agreed to? Was Sweet Valley the connecting road at that time?
Madam President, Commissioner May, so when Three Corners developed up here in 2013, 2014, the City of Meridian pushed really hard to get this stub street. And ACHD was concerned at that time about that stub street. While we do appreciate and need connectivity, at that time there was a house under construction, which is right in this area here. And ACHD, both commission and staff, was concerned about constructing a stub street to a parcel that the street might not able to be extended in the future. So it was that engineer for this development of Three Corners Ranch that submitted information and drawings to show that indeed that street could be extended in the future, that there was sufficient room between the house and the property line to do that. And then at the same time, that homeowner also provided a statement indicating that they were aware that the street would be extended in the future. So the applicant in their original layout chose only to connect Sweet Valley to this site, to Shandy, with an emergency access. So staff's recommendation is that there be a local street that connects Sweet Valley to Shandy to Stafford, as shown there.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm just struggling with, when you have a stub street, those are put in to ensure future access and connectivity. So we have the 3 stubs at the top, and that just shows a lateral connection. Then we have the one on the south around Dvorak, and that's going to be a dead end. And then we have the other 2 at either end of this gated community. And so as that stands, it's really not connectivity for everybody that's in that subdivision. The people in the gated community are the only ones that are going to be able to go east or west. The high density side, they're not going to have that option. So I'm sure the applicant will address this, but I'm struggling with that a little bit. We're driving a lot of traffic through the higher density portion of Bristol Heights. And so, you know, like I say, I'm looking forward to hearing from the applicant, and I'm sure he'll address that, but it just seems just it's a little disconcerting to me. So I'm looking for the answers to those questions. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. We'll hear from the applicant now. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Members of the commission, Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street, representing the applicant. This has been an interesting project to look at. We've had many conversations with staff about it because it's a unique site and it has some very unique challenges. I don't know that I've ever had one with 6 stubs pointing into a subdivision before. In addition to that, we always talk to the neighbors. And in this case, we've had a lot of conversations with the neighbors and trying to understand what it is that they would like to see. Because as you can see from these maps, this is an established neighborhood with established traffic patterns that folks are pretty comfortable with. The question tonight really focuses on connectivity as the magic word. It's one of those words that we use in planning all of the time. It's the planners that I work with probably say it in their sleep, would be my guess. I mean, it's just one of those that just comes up in every conversation. It's undoubtedly a good thing in general, but in this situation, too much of a good thing may not always be a good thing. And so that's what we want to illustrate tonight. In terms of context, as staff noted, this is a highly unusual project. As I mentioned, there's 6 stubs into it. And Christy, is this connected? Doesn't seem to. Oh, it's off. That would be why. There we go. The larger block is, as shown on this picture, is primarily residential. This is not a mixed-use situation. There is a park on the southeast, but it does not have internal road connections into it. It's just pedestrian connections. The school on the northwest, the Ambrose School, is a regional school. It's not a neighborhood school where you would expect people to walk to it. It's primarily going to be folks driving in from larger distances. As staff notes, in addition to that, there is no collector network on this block. And so that raises a couple of interesting points. So first, this is the Vienna Woods neighborhood, and this is how the traffic currently functions. They've got 5 connections down onto McMillan, 1 onto Locust Grove. The next is, oh, it's still not wanting to connect, Christy. Can you go to the next one for me? The next drawing is Bristol Heights, and this is the one collector roadway is Bennington. And so the Bristol Heights folks are able to get out through those connections on Eagle Road and Shinden. And if I don't know if this is ever going to wake up, but one thing I did want to point out on this map is this issue of cut-through traffic that we're trying to avoid. So if you look at the map, you can see Dunwoody, where it connects to Locust Grove, comes in to the east, connects at our gate. Thank you, Christy. And then out, if you were to continue through there through Barclay and then catch Bennington, you would in fact be creating a de facto mid-mile collector road on roadways that are not designed for that. So that was the idea in proposing the gated setup, was to try to break that type of a situation and make sure that the traffic that comes out of this subdivision is truly local and not folks just trying to get over from Locust Road to Eagle. That's something that kind of rings through everything that we did in terms of this drawing. The only question, I think, in terms of what staff has recommended to you and what we would like to discuss with you is the question of how many stubs should connect. At the suggestion of staff, we did look at this drawing with the 3 connections on the north. After thinking about this and looking at it and talking about it with the neighbors, we would like to make a modification to that. And this is what it would look like. Rather than having the connection at all 3 points, what we're suggesting is to have the connection between Sweet Valley and Shandee, and then to have a pedestrian access at Stafford. There's I think a lot of good reasons for doing that. But what does this do? Well, first, next one. It essentially leaves the existing roadway networks intact, which are functioning in a way that the neighbors are very comfortable with. As you can see, there's no change to the traffic pattern for Vienna Woods or for Bristol Heights. Second, it does resolve the issue for the folks on Shandee that had been described. As Christy mentioned, the folks at Shandee are likely to go to either emergency access or right in, right out only when ITD widens Shinden. So this, in the meantime, gets them at least 2 different accesses, and with the opportunity to go out through by the Ambrose School. But that doesn't end up dropping a whole lot of new traffic into that area, creating any new hazards for the students that are located there. And then finally, from our perspective, we think this also eliminates or restricts the possibility of another de facto collector road being created. So if you were to connect Stafford, it really only adds 3 more turns to be able to do exactly what we were concerned about from the Dunwoody direction. We're concerned that that does create the kind of cut-through traffic that ACHD's policies would want to prevent. Again, the emphasis here in an infill project with existing neighborhoods should be getting folks out. And the existing traffic patterns are working just fine, and this developer doesn't want to rock the boat when it comes to that any more than they have to. So we think the best solution is to leave those networks in place, link up Shandee in order to address the issue that they're confronting, and remove the connection at Stafford. As I wrap up, I do want to point out that these issues are critical to the neighborhood, and they are critical to the developer. The developer does live in that triangular piece up at the northwest portion of the project. This design represents a commitment on the part of the developer to do what we believe is the right thing. Why do I know that? Because the road connection that we've proposed on this project between Shandee and Sweet Valley Road will go right next to their house. That's a significant commitment on their part, and it shows that they are trying to do the right thing here. So I'll conclude. I will say that it's my understanding that the Three Corners HOA and the Bristol Heights HOA are in support of the proposal as it exists right now, and we would ask for your support of the plan that's been presented tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions from the commission?
Madam President?
Yes, Commissioner Baker.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Clark, when you say the residents of the Three Corners and Bristol Heights are in favor of the plan, which plan are you talking about? The one that you've presented just now, the one that you originally presented, or the one that staff has presented?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Baker, I get the question because we're trying not to be a moving target here. This has been an instance of trying to be responsive to the neighbors. It's my understanding that the HOAs are in support of the plan that we've presented tonight with the connection at Sweet Valley and Shandy. And they have representatives here, so I won't put any more words in their mouths.
Okay, which is the plan?
Okay, and then I had one more.
Yes, go ahead,
I had one
Commissioner
more.
Baker.
Okay, thank you. You have some pedestrian connections into the subdivision. Are these also going to be gated?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Baker, no, those will be full public accesses, so folks can make use of those to get across for pedestrian purposes.
And for bicycles?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just a follow-up to that. So the private street that goes through there, you will be allowing pedestrian and bicycle access, is that correct?
Madam Chair, that is correct.
And is that noted somewhere on your plat?
It will be on the final plat, and we will, we'd be happy to have that be a condition of the commission's approval.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commission?
No.
No?
Thank you.
All right. Then we have a number of people who have signed up. Yeah. Many of you have not indicated that you wanted to want to testify, but we'll give you an opportunity at the end. Do we have representatives from the homeowners associations? If we do, I think I saw a hand. Would you please come up and we'll let you start. And please state your name and address for the record and which homeowners association.
Madam President, Commissioners, my name is...
Might need to get a little closer to the mic.
Okay. My name is Kendra Neely, and my address is 1800 East Golden Oak. I'm here with Three Corners Association. I wanted to follow up on a letter we submitted last week on behalf of the board, and hopefully you've all had an opportunity to review that. One thing our board wanted to do is understand a little bit more about where the staff was coming from, because when we first read the staff report, we were confused by the recommendation. Several points in the report noted a concern about the traffic flowing from Eagle Road to Locust Grove, but staff recommendation provided a way for traffic to flow from Eagle Road to Locust Grove Road. And so we've had a bit of a learning curve to learn about this whole policy of connectivity. And as we've gone through this process of learning about connectivity, we've wanted to learn about why connectivity is so important. And obviously the purpose behind having this connectivity is to create safe roadways. And something that, you know, we would encourage the commissioners to consider is the whole list of reasons that the staff put up there of here are all the things that connectivity achieves. When we looked at that list, we found that there are very few benefits on that list that are actually achieved by connecting the three roads. For example, it said that, you know, the connectivity brings increased pedestrian and bicycle traffic. Well, with this plan, as you can see, you don't have to have the roads connected in three places in order to have the pedestrian traffic going to all three locations. Another thing that was pointed out on that list is if you don't have connectivity, or if you have connectivity, it increases access points to the arterial street system. That's not true in this case. There are no other arterial points being added. It also said that it promotes intra-neighborhood traffic circulation in order to get to, say, a coffee shop or something. But in this case, the only commercial sections we have in Three Corners are schools, are the regional school. We don't have a coffee shop or a dentist office or something like that for someone to drive over and go to their dentist appointment rather than going on the perimeter roads around. So this is not news to you, I know, but when we went through this list, I know that our letter to you pointed out all of the risks associated with it, but what we also saw is the benefits that usually come with connectivity don't apply here. So to us, the point we mainly wanted to make to you is the connectivity, the ideas behind it are very stretched and forced and seem very intangible, and it might exist, whereas the risks that we talked about in our letter to you are very tangible and very present and very real. And what you're going to hear about tonight from a lot of our homeowners are actual incidents of close calls where people were almost hurt. This is stuff that's actually happening. And I understand staff and you as a commission have a very difficult job. And I just want to say that when we're talking about adhering to this policy of connectivity, I just want to impress upon you the importance of looking at the idea that if you have a very little added benefit, but you have, at the same time you're creating this cut through traffic, you're creating this huge risk of safety, you're creating a collector street, and you're exacerbating a really dangerous situation that already exists. I hope it makes your decision easier. I really feel like this is a situation where, I'm gonna say heck because my nephews are in the audience, the road to heck is paved with good intentions. This policy is clearly made for good reasons, but in this situation, it just has created a more dangerous situation. And I hope the stories that come out of our neighbors will impress that upon you. And I did want to clarify, as a board, we are in support of this plan because our concerns were just not having the cut through traffic going past the school and the dangerous situation that already exists there. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
So just for clarification, the plan that you're supporting is the one that's on the screen, which is the new proposal this evening from the applicant, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, commissioners, questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have another homeowners association rep here? Yes, come on up. And please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Darren Juergensmeyer. I live at 1778 East Dunwoody Court, and I'm representing the homeowners on Dunwoody Court. Thank you for your time and for your consideration on this matter. The homeowners on Dunwoody Court, I think, believe that we can reach a plan that is both safe and convenient for this development, but there are some changes that need to be made. We did submit a petition that the homeowners on Dunwoody had signed, where we are in support of accessing the 5 stub streets. As a clarification, there are 5 stub streets and there's one private lane that has frontage onto Dunwoody, and using Dunwoody as an emergency access point. I don't know how many of you have been able to drive through this area. I understand some on the commission live in the area. But if you drive through there and see, so Dunwoody is about a half-mile long road, has many curves. Under the RUT, as was mentioned, it does not have any curbs, sidewalks, streetlights, and it mentions that there are paved shoulders. There are not paved shoulders. There's 27 feet of pavement, and the landscaping, development, cable boxes, access to gas lines, etc., is all right up to the pavement. We rarely get the maintenance to come through, but when they did come through, in the 4 years I've lived there, they came through once, and because everything is so close to the road in repairing cracks, they did start a significant fire that required 2 fire trucks to come in, and that was difficult for those fire trucks to access and maneuver on Dunwoody Court because of its shape and size. Dunwoody is accessed, or many families live there that have small children that access the bus stop that is on Locust Grove by walking directly in the street because there are no sidewalks or other areas for the pedestrians to walk. Many of the children ride their bike to school, riding right on Dunwoody. And many of the corners as you come around Dunwoody have poor visibility. And so as you drive around, we think it's a safety hazard to have an increase in traffic, as mentioned, 425 new trips, which per this plan would be primarily funneled through Dunwoody to the west and Barkley to the east. The report says that the collector system in Bristol Heights is well below capacity at 13% and 30%. Well, Dunwoody, on the opposite side, taking 50% of the traffic, is not a collector system. It is a road within RUT development. So it'd be funneling medium density zoning through an RUT. Some of the other points we'd like to mention is we're in agreement that up to the north, because of the precedent set with the sign saying these roads will be extended with further development, that they should be, but we recommend connecting the inner roads with the outer roads. That would lead to improved access to that and decompress some of the funneling of that traffic through the smaller roads. On the report, it states that there is it says approximately 82 feet of frontage of the Three Corners Ranch onto Dunwoody. That is inaccurate. Currently, there are stakes out, and in between those stakes, it measures 46 feet. In between the two homes, which they have significant landscaping in between, there's 110 feet in between the two homes on that side. So that 82 feet, I'm not sure where it comes from, but it's not accurate. And with the, one of our concerns also is the construction traffic, that during the time when the development will be under construction, as with our experience with Three Corners to the north, it's likely to be a 3 to 5 year process of construction. And the concerns over the east to west through streets, I'm sure there will be a time where the gates won't be up when the construction equipment and crews are coming through. And so that will be open for a direct east to west through traffic. Some of the other inaccuracies in this report, when you look at Shandy Drive, for example, it says Shandy Drive is approximately 22 feet wide. Shandy Drive has 28 feet of pavement, and it has at least 12 feet on either side that are clear of any home, fencing, landscaping, etc. It's 1/5 of a mile long, and it's a direct connection to a main arterial. So when you look at construction traffic coming through, if they had to choose going through the collector system through Bristol Heights, the rural road through Dunwoody, which has that sharp 90-degree turn that they have to make, which we've already seen the fire trucks have difficulty doing, it's not the best case. Whereas that straight 1/5 of a mile shot from Chinden right down into, if you connect that in the community, following that green space that's up on the screen, it would be very easy to connect right in at that location. That's the same with Dvorak down to the south. The cul-de-sac may meet the requirement to say we have extended or terminated this stub street, but it doesn't provide any extra connectivity, and connecting that into the inner roads would be an easy thing to do and provide decompression to the other roads. As far as the mentioned that in the future with the expansion of Chinden, that Shandy will become a right-in, right-out road. It's our understanding that as Locust Grove, in the report it mentions that's slated around 2031 that the Locust Grove expansion will happen. And when I contacted the city, they said likely that Locust Grove, or Dunwoody onto Locust Grove will become a right-in, right-out. And so at that point, if we're funneling all of this traffic through two main entrances, one of which is not safe and not adequate for this, it's also going to be only a right-in, right-out road. So the access to this location would be greatly decreased by that. So I think there are other safety issues in the area that many of the other people may mention. You know, when they talk about the school in the area, it does become quite congested on Locust Grove at the time of the drop-off and pickup of the students on Locust Grove. Many of them are dropped off on both sides of the street, and there is no designated crosswalk, and so the students are just walking across Locust Grove. Ambrose School has plans to further extend to the north, so when they do, they'd have kind of two separate campuses that are on either sides of that Three Corners street. At the time, they should plan and could have better safety if they have a designated crosswalk at that location and likely one at Locust Grove. You know, there are many other concerns we have, but that is our recommendation that the stub streets, the 5 stub streets, should all be connected into the inner roads with or without gates as is seen fit to direct the traffic as should be, but that Dunwoody should be, because of its size, shape, and lack of infrastructure, emergency access.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And do we have any other homeowners associations? Yes. If you would please come up and state your name and address for the record and let us know who you're representing.
Okay. Well, I'm Cindy Breckel and I live in Bristol Heights. I have a question before we go too much further, because the gentleman in the middle here said that he had buy-in from the HOAs and that they're represented here. I would like to know who those people are, because I don't believe it. And the one gentleman that just got up, he's not in favor of it. So may I ask, or would you like to ask?
Well, I think we'll find out as they individually come up. Do you want to provide some comment now, or do you want to wait?
Well, I kind of, before we went down that trail, I would like to question him on that, because I've been misinformed before.
Well, why don't you have a private conversation with him then, and if you want to testify later, you can.
I will testify later, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
So we're just trusting that he has.
Well, we're going to find out
okay.
as people testify. All right, any other homeowners association representatives? If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Madam President, Commissioners, my name is Joe Legueux. I actually am the president of the Bristol Heights Homeowners Association, but I'm not before you to speak representing the homeowners associations. We're probably the largest HOA. We're 544 homes to the east of this development. It is kind of a moving target, as was mentioned earlier, so we have not had the opportunity to poll the constituency and find out where the majority really stands on this. There are representative individuals from the association that are here tonight and they'll speak to you. But for the moment, I can't say that I could represent the homeowners association because we have not polled our HOA. I would like to speak to you as an individual later this evening.
You can speak as an individual now if you like, since you're already up here.
Okay. The key thing that seems to be of great interest. Oh, I'm so sorry. My name is Joe Legueux. My address is 14435 West Guinness Drive in Boise, Idaho. The de facto collector that was pointed out by the gentleman earlier is perhaps what some of the members of the HOA that are most active over this have been most concerned about. And it is a pretty unique scenario that we have in terms of, are all these collectors going to add value, or are they going to create a problem? It seems to be more people are thinking that it's going to create problems. Now, the problem here as well is that there will need to be some compromise. We have 5 different communities essentially that are surrounding this, and there is no perfect solution for all of them. What we do know, though, is that the Bennington-Bristol Heights is as an arterial, is become a bit of a collector for just the traffic that even comes down through Chinden these days. Adding connectivity all the way through Stafford, all the way down over to Sweet Valley would conceivably create traffic that will find its way all the way from Eagle all the way to Locust Grove. It's circuitous for sure, but it creates a straight through path. Distributed access to this development and to the individual developments that's somewhat isolated might make more sense to prevent further traffic problems within the core of this. A lot of folks are happy with the fact that it's the properties are large, it's not high density, it's not going to bring a lot of numbers in terms of families into that area with these, I believe it's 44 residences. So distributing the traffic and sending it out through Bristol Heights and sending it out through Dunwoody, it's a split impact on both of those communities, the way that the developer had proposed it tonight. The other concern is whether access from Bristol Heights through public roadways all the way over to the Ambrose School, which is about half built at this point. They're going to have a K-12 that's going to be built over there as well. There's going to be a street that goes straight through the middle of the schools as they will be set up. Does it make sense to allow people to drive all the way through from Eagle over to Locust Grove and drop people off at Ambrose, or come around because they're isolated and they can't get to it through the subdivision? It's complicated. It will involve compromise. And have we had the opportunity to be able to put a pin in it and say, here is the current plan, let's poll our constituency and find out how people stand? We conceivably could have done that, but the current plan, as far as I know, is not more than 72 hours old. The one that you saw tonight that actually makes strictly a walkway connecting Shanday and running out through Sweet Valley. Personally, I favor that plan because it eliminates the connectivity problems of flowing traffic all the way through and probably safety issues that we'll otherwise encounter with people driving down even streets like Guinness, up Heathrow, and all the way across. In any event, appreciate your time tonight.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other homeowners association representatives here that wish to speak? If not, we'll go to the individuals. Do you want to testify now or do you want to testify later? Well, you can ask the question as part of your testimony if you like. And state your name and address for the record, please.
1822 East Town Line Way.
Would you repeat that, please? I'm not sure it was picked up by the tape.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sergio Trevino, 1822 East Town Line Way, Meridian, Idaho 83646. I know you're representing HOAs, but there's a representative from the Ambrose School. I'm just asking how that falls in. How does a representative from the school, who is also very important and I would put in that same category as an HOA, be represented tonight? That's my question to you.
Okay, well, if there is a representative, they'll be allowed to speak as well.
All right, I just wanted to ask.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to the list. And we'll go through the ones who have checked the box that you want to testify. If you didn't check the box, we'll give you an opportunity at the end so that everyone has the opportunity to address the commission. The first one I have is Ron Santos. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Name is Ron Santos, 14474 West Barclay Street, Boise, Idaho. And I'd like to thank the commissioners for hearing everyone's concerns, and actually the developer and owner that lives in Dunwoody for their Dunwoody extension for not making it to a high density development. I'd like to thank them for that. The new changes to the design, a lot of us in Bristol Heights approve it. There's a few things that happen there. We had a lot of concerns with the safety traffic impacts to our neighborhood. We already have a lot of cut through from Eagle and Chinden to avoid that intersection. We have people going around our school buses with the stop signs out, which are documented. We also have pedestrian impacts already. October 2018, we had a child hit in our neighborhood. And so we're getting this increased traffic risks for development that we're not having any benefit to. So we're already connected to Austin Creek, Roxy Place, Edinburgh, and they're using us also for their connection points. So we do agree with the land design change and development change. We've had some meetings with the developer, and we agree with having no construction going through Barclay Street, or Bristol Heights in general. And initially it was proposed that the main gate would be off Barclay, but they changed that so it would be a sharing of traffic impacts to Barclay and Dunwoody, which is a lot better. Also support Shandy access off Sweet Valley, and also just the confirmation that there is pedestrian access through Three Corners, which that wasn't confirmed at the original start of this. As a resident that lives off Barclay, really concerned with the traffic impacts. We have established 15 years of traffic routes, how the traffic comes through our neighborhood. They're really established. And although your analysis shows that both Dunwoody and Barclay Street can take the impacts of the additional traffic, I don't know, have they considered that our small local street is not designed as a collector. We have a higher density, so our setbacks for our houses is a lot lower than what's in Dunwoody. Our driveways are a lot smaller, and the garage space is a lot smaller. So what does that mean? That means our residents have to park in the street. We have to stage our RVs, camp trailers, boats in the street. So that effectively reduces the roadway width. So that, I don't know if that's taken into account. And then also, if have you guys taken a look at the traffic routes? With that connection, you're actually increasing the distance traveled by the residents that's in Three Corners Ranch. If they're going through Eagle, coming off through our subdivision, it's actually increased time and increased distance. Is that it?
If you want to just make a couple of
Okay.
wrap-up comments.
Okay, the last thing is just the policy of vehicle connectivity should not be applied blindly. We should take a look at the impacts to all the residents that's surrounding the new subdivision. And consider the risk to all the surrounding neighborhoods and impact to the quality of life. So we do have a lot of children on our street. We have 20 plus that actually play in the street. And it's a very busy street, Barclay Street, that is. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have more? I have to make one comment in response to that. Streets are not designed for children to play in, so I would discourage that. That's why we have parks for children to play in. They're not gonna get run over by a car if they're playing in a park, hopefully. All right, the next person who is signed up is Tori Lewis. And if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Tori Lewis. I live on 6060 Sweet Valley Avenue. Evening, Commissioners. I have some concerns because I'm right there on the road that's going to be either connected to Fire Road or now it sounds like a connection to the ranchettes. And I drive through there every day and I see we get a problem coming out of there by the school when they drop off and pick up, but also at 5 o'clock, you can barely get out of our subdivision because of traffic. They block it. If you have one of those squares, you can get out, but that's a real concern. There are a lot of kids in the area. Seen a lot of kids jumping out of their cars to go to school, near misses, doors getting taken off. But I did another thing in terms of that artery or that connector road. I did a little time study myself. I went to the Station 3 and Meridian Fire Station. I just drove at the speed of traffic. speed limits. And I drove from there all the way over into Shandy to where there'd be the connection point, and I also did it into the Sweet Valley. And looking at that, and I also had to do a little estimation from going from Sweet Valley to Shandy. It's about 34 seconds if that little road was built there, but it ends up showing that the emergency vehicles will be about 35 seconds longer going through the Three Corners subdivision than going around on the artery streets. So that part of me goes, connectivity for bikes and stuff is great, but extra cars just adds more congestion to that neighborhood, and it doesn't help with emergency vehicle access because they travel a lot faster than I do, so the time is down, but it's still not going to change the time difference for the people in Shandy with the known right in, right out that's going to take place there. Everything I did was went with the right out, right in, and I came in and did that timing. So it kind of impacts the people that live in that neighborhood by half 30 seconds or better. So as firefighters, the quicker they can get to a fire, the better they are. So, the redundancy of that road being made connectivity for fire emergency vehicles to me is kind of, after I just went and tried to do that typing to see which was faster. I guess, yeah, and the assumptions I had when I was driving that, when I was coming in with the fire truck, is if I was doing time, there's no kids playing on the street to stop or slow them down. There's no cars parked in that artery as you come in because that squeezes it down. And the parking along and the access because a lot of times I've come there at 5 o'clock and there's no way a fire truck can get past the car into the subdivision. So I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? No? All right. The next person who signed up looks like David Dean. Is that? Did I get your last name?
Dean.
Okay.
1890 East Dunwoody Court. I'm the developer. I'm the one that's got the house in the corner there. So I've lived in the neighborhood between Dunwoody and where I live now for 28 years. So I'm not your typical developer at all. When we went to lay this out, we wanted to do something that had the least impact on the neighbors as possible. So that's why we went with 44 lots on 31. Well, there's 45 counting my house, but it's already there. Because we are concerned about our neighbors. I know people in all those subdivisions around us. So, and I like this a lot better just because of the cut through traffic. The other way, there was going to be the cut through traffic going through and then through the school area. And I mean, this plan here does eliminate that, and that's probably good for the people in Stafford Place as well. So, and I just am really, really leery about creating something that's more or less a collector coming through that school area. As I said in my letter, I've had a personal experience many years ago where my cousin, who was in first grade, was hit by a car and killed in this valley. And this was at noon. He'd been at school for 4 hours. So I have a real aversion to put a lot of traffic through there. It really, it's personal for me. So that's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to.
All right. Thank you. Questions?
I just have one question. We just want to try and figure out how that gate is supposed to work on Dunwoody that goes from Barclay to Dunwoody.
I mean, where is it?
Yeah, where is it?
It's going to be near Dunwoody, so you don't have people coming all the way in and having to figure out how to.
Oh, so there's just one gate. It comes off of Dunwoody.
Yeah, it might. I can't speak to exactly where it is, but it's.
And then you have another gate on Barclay, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you
That's-
basically,
That's our only, that would be our two
Right,
ways to get
okay.
out of there, yes.
so people who don't live in that development wouldn't be able to get in there.
No, other than pedestrians and stuff like that.
Right, no, I'm
So you couldn't
talking about
have any
vehicles.
cut-through
Okay.
traffic there.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next person who signed up is Cindy Breckel. Hello again. Please state your name and address for the
Okay,
record.
Cindy Breckel, and 5960 North Rothmans Avenue, and that's Boise. It's in Bristol Heights. And thank you for coming and listening. I'm a little bit upset about this over and over. Everybody that's come up, especially for the Three Corners project, have mentioned that they do not want traffic coming in and out. What they say is the, let's see, I have too many notes. They don't want cut-through traffic, yet that is exactly what they're giving Bristol Heights, cut-through traffic. They're putting up gates to close off their little section, so everyone has to go through our neighborhoods and cut through, exactly what they're trying to eliminate for their special gated community. Perhaps Bristol Heights should put up gates to keep cut-through traffic, which would be going to their subdivision out. It just doesn't seem right. To tell you the truth, when we first bought in Bristol Heights, we were hoping to, we purchased in Bristol Heights, as many others did, for the quality of life and not to have to dodge cars, a lot of high-density traffic. Right now, what they're proposing is giving us a lot of traffic. I personally live on Rothmans Avenue, and it's a little kind of cul-de-sac. We go on to Wood Springs and Battenberg. It's about a 90-degree turn. It's kind of blind coming out onto Bennington. Bennington is one of the main thoroughfares that all the cut-through traffic would be coming through. It's going to pose a real problem for all of the residents in Bristol Heights because of all the traffic. I'm hoping that they will have connectors going out to several different areas. I know they don't want it, but I believe a lot of people in Bristol Heights does. I still don't know how they can say that a lot of us are on board with the new proposal that just happened. We weren't even aware of it being proposed. I know they had a meeting, but a lot of us work and we couldn't make it. Let's see, let me just look. I do like the idea of the Sweet Valley, that if that could be extended out. I was told when I had called and talked to Mr. Lopez, he said that the Meridian folks, the city, they did not want that. And he told me what specific roads they wanted. So I said, who were you talking to there? Because that was news to me. He gave me the gal's name. It was Stephanie. So I called Stephanie and I told her what I was just told on the phone like 5 minutes before that. She totally denied that. I hope that you will trust but verify what you have heard tonight, because there's not a lot of transparency. I personally was told something that wasn't true and I followed up on it. So trust but verify, go out there, take a look at what they're proposing and pretend you live in Bristol Heights and see if you would like that. If you have grandkids, kids, it's just not right. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
I just have a question with regard to this new proposal. Trying to figure out how if they have traffic coming in, people are supposedly driving in off of, what is it called, Sweet Valley or Shandy, how do they get over to Bristol Heights?
Aren't there going to be gates where they can't get through?
No, I mean, other than people who will be the residents coming off of Barclay.
See, when they were going through all of that, they didn't use the light and we couldn't hardly see what they were talking about. There were lines, but I had no idea what they were talking about when they were saying the new thing that was proposed. I wish they would have used the little pointer. I would love it if they would go back over that.
I bet they will in their rebuttal, but thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next person who's signed up is Richard Jackson. Please state your name and address for the record.
Richard Jackson, 5960 North Rothmans Way. When we purchased our home in Bristol Heights, we bought there for the quality of life, that including not having a lot of traffic to deal with. With the way that the Bennington and Bristol Heights Street comes in off of Chinden, it weaves its way through to Eagle. For those of us who live in that northeastern section, when we enter out to make a left turn onto those streets, it's often a dangerous situation. We have a problem with people speeding in that area. If we throw more traffic on that street, it's going to just simply become more and more dangerous. We have many people that walk dogs, walk, bicycle, and those people need to be protected. The construction on Chinden is simply going to add more traffic to that area. We really don't have any choice in that matter, but we must recognize that it's coming. The way that this parcel of land ended up hardly reflects an infill. Infill is more properly applied to a lot or several lots. And I'm sorry for Mr. Dean, but the cities involved should have never allowed this to happen. And those of us who own properties in Bristol Heights should not be expected to sacrifice our quality of life or our property values because some other people didn't plan properly. There should have been access to that acreage there. It was a large enough parcel for a major subdivision, and it wasn't going to stay an onion field forever. And so there needs to be some way of gaining access to there, but not at our property value sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? No? All right. The next person who signed up is Lori Lewis. If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Commissioner and members of the Commission for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Lori Lewis, and I live at 2000 East Dunwoody Court. So I just want to just cover a few things. First of all, I'd like to challenge the testimony of the applicant today in terms of their listening and accommodating the residents of the different neighborhoods, because I think what they've done in terms of Dunwoody has been inadequate. So I would encourage them to reach out to our community more. Secondly, I appreciate the testimonies that we've heard today regarding safety. We have the same issue and same concern in Dunwoody, and it's already been told just in terms of what the Dunwoody Court road looks like. It's very windy, there's a lot of blind spots, no infrastructure, and certainly not infrastructure to be able to handle 425 or even half of that in terms of traffic going in and out. And that's in a gated community, assuming even the gates are stay down, right? So we all know that's not always the case as well. And because there is no infrastructure, we do have a number of small children in the neighborhood, as already has been said today in testimony. And it's just, I just can't emphasize to you how important it is to actually come out and do a site visit. Because as we look through the ACHD report, there are a number of discrepancies that are just, clear. It's clear to me, at least, that there hasn't been a site visit, and I think it's very, very important to do that and to do the right assessment. Because I think one of the things in the report also recommended that there would be nothing that would be needed to be done to Dunwoody for it to be used as an access street. Okay. The other thing is just so we talked about lights, no sidewalks, no gutters, no drains, none of that. And as well, just even the difficulty of emergency vehicles to go down and to down the street. And also, for years, actually, and we've been actually in Dunwoody since the beginning. I think we were the first house being built there. But they have never, the school buses will never go down the road either, because it's not wide enough for them to even be able to turn around in the cul-de-sac at the end. So those are things that I think really are important to consider as we're looking at the amount of traffic that would be coming down that street. Then the other thing, one thing I think I just would like to have a better understanding of, in the testimony today, it was stated that originally in the Three Corners subdivision, that it was agreed by the developer that there would be a stub street in Three Corners to have access to this new development. And the fact that we're not using that, I don't understand why. And I'd like to have them explain that as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No?
All right, thanks.
All right, the next person who's signed up looks like Mark Miller. And please state your name and address for the record.
Mark Miller, I'm also here to speak for my wife, Madam President and Commissioners. Thank you for listening to me. My address is, we are the owners of 1906 East Dunwoody Court. The property that we own happens to be the most affected of all properties because we have about 700 feet of frontage on the roads and back of Dunwoody. So we have some concerns. I'm grateful for that Mr. Dean is here. He's been a wonderful neighbor for 15 years and usually has always had the interests of the whole neighborhood. I think he's honest in telling us that. I would request that there probably be more communication. I personally have not received communication from them directly, even though I'm most impacted of any homeowner from a property frontage aspect, but I'm certainly happy to talk to them. That's some of my concerns. One of the concerns I have is the entry on Dunwoody. Like the other gentleman said, it's not 80 feet. It's much more limited than that, and I'm not sure how you would get that big, and also how a large number of houses come into a radial turn. As people are trying to turn with the blind and the turning there, there's not much of a straightness as you see it's coming in onto a radius. Which will flow a lot of traffic. So I'm thinking, is there a way to make another north-south connection instead of just east-west? The other concern, I don't know if you can put up the other plat that has the satellite view for me. Do you have that up there at all? One thing that hasn't been brought up, I mean, one of the realities of Dunwoody was a rural area when we bought. There was no real Bristol Heights extra subdivision. Part of it was there. There was nothing, there was no Ambrose School, and there was no Vienna Woods, but growth is growth. So it's becoming much less agricultural and much more dense. But there are open space acreage lots that are already separate lots that need access from the highway behind Dunwoody that this blocks. And so I'm requesting that the developers help us figure that out. I can show you on this picture.
If we could have you stay at the mic and use a pointer, because we need to get your comments on
Oh,
the record.
sorry. Can I get a pointer or?
There should be one there. Isn't there or no?
Well, I guess let me just.
Ms. Little, can you provide some assistance here?
Sorry. Not really prepared to show up there.
There should be.
Can I point without talking?
And you can speak from this microphone and use this.
Dunwoody had open space separate lots, including this one here and this one here, that are now developed into homes. These open space lots are also slated to be developed, and behind Dunwoody, there are 4 acre lots, kind of you mind if I take up one more minute?
Go ahead. We took up a little of your time there.
There are 4 acre lots here. I don't know if you can see this, 1, 2, 3, 4, that need access for the future, as these are likely to be developed down the road. Maybe not in the next year or 2 or whatever, but they definitely could be developed as home sites and full acres, as they are separate parcels from home sites that currently exist. So I think I'm requesting that there be at least some consideration whether we can work in coordination, not that necessarily that might happen immediately, but that at least be for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, that those not be landlocked without any street access whatsoever. And that's just a consideration. I'm not sure exactly how that looks, but some north-south change may work there, or at least the developer could discuss with the homeowners exactly how that might look, which hasn't really happened at this point. But that's all. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. Any questions? No. Can you clarify, do those 4 lots he just pointed, how do they gain access now? It's kind of hard to see on the map.
Madam President, Commissioners, I believe he's talking about existing acreages that are in Dunwoody subdivision on Dunwoody Court. Okay. And he's talking about how if in the future those were to maybe split off the back part of those parcels, how would they get access to those through this site off of the private street network?
Correction, those are already split. Those are separate parcels and separately taxed. They're already divided.
Well, then the access would have had to have been dealt with at the time. And it'll be an issue between those homeowners, I would think.
The access from behind?
If they've already split the lots, they had to provide access in order to get a lot split.
I think they were split at the original plat. And I think the plan was that the area behind it would at least have provided access. There was no, the lots were split before it was ever developed. So the neighbors didn't split their lots. Those were already separate parcels that the neighbors purchased in association with their home site. Does that clarification? I just bring it up just because that's a potential for the future, and it might be something we could work with the developer on. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next person who's signed up is Joe. I can't read this. Yeah, Lague. Yes. Oh, that's right.
Well,
okay.
I talked to about a minute of that was about the homeowners association. One point that I wanted to make, I can do.
All right, I'll let you do it.
But
State your name and address for the record.
Joe Lague, 14435 West Guinness Drive. And the point has to do with staff's recommendation to you tonight is not what we're looking at right there. If in fact you're considering approving this plan here, the key thing is that we got Shandy is probably the isolated neighborhood. Either plan that we have, staff recommendations plan, or this plan that's on the board right now gives them one access point. There is not an emergency ingress or egress, and perhaps would have to be. As long as ITD keeps that side open and they are right in, right out, they have access. But if 10 years from now they're closing that all off, which seemed to be the intent anyway, and turning that into a cul-de-sac and at the end, they may need to have access just like we have at the top of Stafford. It's emergency access. So if in fact this is the direction that things do go, Shandy should be afforded some kind of access for the fire department. It shouldn't be through Bristol Heights because that's coming through Boise. It's really a Meridian City Fire Department access, and their closest route would be coming down directly through the top of Shandy.
Okay.
Assuming that their access goes out through Sweet Valley Lane.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next person who's signed up is Kelly Barber from the Ambrose School. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, so Kelly Barber, I'm an administrator at the Ambrose School, which is at 6100 North Locust Grove. So I just want to primarily make a comment that it looks like some of the considerations that we had concerns about with regard to increased traffic flow has been addressed by some of this modification that apparently happened in the last day or two. The main point that we would want to bring up is just that as a K through 12 school, that is a commuter school essentially, right? There's no bus service, that you do have a lot of folks commuting to the school, and you have younger children in parking lots and sidewalks and those kinds of things. So limiting the traffic flow is certainly something that's very important in our, and understanding that the practicality of the situation is that no one's going to be completely happy. We certainly can understand that. It does seem like this is a pretty civil discourse tonight, which is good to hear because we've not been involved in this process directly. So hearing that some of these things have been taken into account and trying to limit some of the potential traffic flow and speed of traffic and essentially not making it a cut through from Eagle to Locust Grove, I think is certainly something that we would be more supportive of. But just basically the main point is that we have hundreds of grammar school children, right, K through 6, and even some more that are not of driving age yet in 7th and 8th grade that would be in the area. So taking those concerns into account is very important. Recognizing again traffic and changes in construction on Chinden Road, preventing some of that left into Shandy certainly makes sense to try to accommodate some of those owners as well. So just basically want to make that point and understand that that's where we're coming from, and hopefully there can be a good solution worked on here. But the safety of the children and decreasing the traffic flow when and where possible would be of a high priority to us. So thank you.
Are there any questions from the commission? No? Okay, that's the end of the list as far as those who checked the box that they wanted to testify. If you would like to comment on this item, I'll give you the opportunity now. If you, anyone else? Okay, right there. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Kraft. I live at 1832 East Golden Oak Court, which is in Three Corners. And I have had a chance to, I drive Sweet Valley every day. I drive down Town Line and through the Ambrose School. So I've had a chance to observe some of the things that go on there. I would like to correct that there are a number of kids that walk across now Sweet Valley. So there are kids coming from adjacent neighborhoods that go to the Ambrose School on their bikes and walking. So there's already traffic across Sweet Valley going to the Ambrose School itself. So that's a safety concern, and that would be my biggest concern, is having anything that goes through the neighborhood that's a direct access from Chinden or from another major thoroughfare, adding a lot of traffic to that area, I think would be an issue for the kids and for their safety. There's already bottlenecks as you go through Town Line Way. We've had a number of things come up in our own HOA about parking on Town Line Way, that causes problems for people trying to get through the neighborhood. That's without any access through that neighborhood right now. There's also cones that are put out as you go through by the Ambrose School, simply to keep access available for people from Three Corners to get through past the Ambrose School to Locust Grove. So there's already a bottleneck right there as well. So if there's a lot more traffic that comes through there, I think there would be safety concerns and access concerns as well. So those are just some of my observations being a neighbor and driving through that area right now. So I think I would support this current application and how it's set up, because it does provide that access for Shandy, and we have neighbors that live there, so I think that's important for them to have that access, but it prevents there from being a thoroughfare from a major street that comes through going through the Ambrose School. And I think if you have 500 students that are there, that's quite a number of kids, and that would be a very big safety concern from my standpoint and a major consideration. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Thank you. Any questions? No? All right, I saw another hand somewhere back here. Please come on up. And state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. Ben Needler, 6020 Shandy Drive. I live in the house that is, well, I've got 400 feet of side yard that's on the north boundary of the project. The Shandy Drive, the Fuller Ranchettes folks, we don't have a formal HOA, so unfortunately, I'd have to get all 27 people here to speak on behalf of the subdivision, but somehow my front porch has become the HOA headquarters. A lot of people,
lucky you.
right, lucky me, nice people. this is a new plan tonight. Seen a couple iterations with the road connecting on the ring road, and then of course the T from ACHD, and now this support. I'm going to speak on my behalf because I can't really speak to my neighbors, although there's been lots of conversations about our westward connectivity. Three of our neighbors up on the Chinden frontage are already in negotiations with ITD on their right-of-way being purchased, the road commencing, if not at the end of this year, next year, and we're going to be right in, right out. So if the design of public roadways is to have access and connectivity, I strongly support this plan, because this will give us a westbound option that we're not making those lovely U-turns on Chinden or at Eagle and Chinden, forbid that. So in support of that, the pedestrian connectivity, there are a lot of people that bike and walk through here, so I do like the plans, and especially through the gated community, that it be open so kids can commute back and forth, especially to the school. My children attend the Ambrose School. Luckily, Mr. Dean has been gracious to allow me to build a little walkway through the field, and it's nice to have the roadway so that my teen drivers can drive inside the neighborhood and go to the school safely. So in strong support of that. Overall, I'm in support of the subdivision for the sake of its density. Heaven forbid what a hearing would be like if this had the full density that I believe the city of Meridian would want, and have high density 100 homes on 30 some acres, and the traffic concerns that would be created from that. I think this is a great opportunity for lower density and to be less of an impact on everybody that's involved. Otherwise, I think I've covered all my points, and I will work to get my neighbors out to the hearing since we don't have a formal HOA. So anyway, any questions?
Questions? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? No one else wants to speak? Oh, you do. Okay, come on up. State your name and address for the record, please. I almost didn't see that hand. It didn't go up very high.
It's kind of frightening. But anyway, my name is John French. I reside at 2230 East Handle in Meridian, Idaho, 83646. And I wasn't aware of this plan initially, and we had great concerns in Vienna Woods. That's where we live at, because we already have a real traffic problem with people speeding, cutting across from Austin Creek, Bristol Heights, something like that, getting to Locust Grove. So this plan here that is being projected right now, I think is much more favorable as far as goes for the traffic situation that we're facing than the previously proposed plan with the beltway around the edge and all that. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clear and let people know, and I believe I don't represent the homeowners association, anything like that, just myself, but I think this would be viewed favorably. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if there are no other takers, we will hear from the applicant again.
This one so I can use
Yes, you can. Yes, absolutely. And I would like for you to state your name and address again
Absolutely.
for the record.
Yep. Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street, representing the applicant. Hi.
And
all the way
before
over
you
here.
start, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
This new plan that you have presented that's on the screen tonight, when was this done?
So Madam Chair, this plan was presented to a meeting that was organized with the Bristol Heights folks on Monday. This has been something that we've tried to react to quickly to try to get things ready for this meeting so that we could then be ready for the planning and zoning meeting. But we certainly have been hearing a lot of concerns about these additional connections, and so we thought this is the best compromise. Apologize for the late notice on it, but we think this is the best way to deal with it.
Okay, so this is a fairly new plan, couple of days old, and has not been widely circulated amongst the neighborhoods.
Madam Chair, I might bring up one of the development team folks here, Marcel Lopez, and he can speak to the efforts that he's made to try to share this with folks.
Okay, and if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Marcel Lopez, 4824 West Fairview Avenue, Boise. This is a very new plan. It resulted from a recommendation that ACHD had requested to modify by removing portions of the ring road. We did try to distribute it as quickly as possible. We were very short on time. We notified as many of the Bristol Heights neighbors, had a quick meeting with Dunwoody representative, and just try to distribute it as quickly as we could, but because of the short time frame, not everybody got to see it and spend as much time viewing it as we would have preferred.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Clark, do you have further comments?
I do, and just, I guess for the record, again, Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street. With regard to the Bristol Heights folks, I did want to just reiterate that there was the meeting on Monday. I apologize if I put words in anyone's mouth about any formal action that was taken by the board. I apparently misunderstood exactly what occurred there. It's my understanding that there was support expressed at that meeting, but clearly it's not been something that's been formalized by that group, so I hope I didn't mislead. With regard to the proposal, the Meridian zoning in this area would permit up to approximately 99 homes. We've proposed about 44. You can see that there's been great effort that's been made to align the size of those lots with the neighbors. So the lots on the west match up what's at Dunwoody. Stuff on the right, we've attempted to try to match with Bristol Heights. It's been a real effort to try to be consistent with the neighborhood. And that includes the issue of the cut through traffic. And I just wanted to hit that one more time. Let's see. Again, our primary concern and the reason we did propose the gate was because we were concerned that folks would come all the way from Locust Grove across Dunwoody. In other words, adding trips of non-residents that would be cutting through from Locust Grove to try to make it all the way across to Eagle Road. That's the reason for that gate. Now, to answer Commissioner Hansen's question, the gate will be key card activated. It will also have the typical modern equipment that's associated with that, where folks can dial in, speak with and calls will be forwarded to the homeowners. In addition, it'll have the Opticon equipment, so emergency service providers are able to access it. There was a question that Mr. Miller raised about those back lots at Dunwoody, the ones that look like they are landlocked. We pulled up the Dunwoody subdivision plat. It appears that was on purpose. There's a plat note and a restriction saying that they're open space. So that would have occurred in connection with the platting of Dunwoody. So those are off-site issues that we really can't handle that were dealt with years ago. Again, connectivity is a good thing. In this case, it's a question of whether there's too much of a good thing. And we are concerned about these cut-through issues. We do believe that the connections points, as we've proposed, avoid turning this into an informal collector inappropriately. And so we would ask for your support of the plan that's been presented tonight. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I do have another question. If you would put up the current proposal again. And then point where exactly the gates will be located?
So Madam Chair, one gate will be over here at Dunwoody Court on the left, and then there will be a gate over at Bristol on the right.
So that entire area is private, correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay.
But of course, and I would be remiss in not thanking Commissioner Baker for reminding me to say something about it. There are these public pedestrian bicycle accesses that are provided. So this is not just an enclave, a bubble. This is really and truly intended to avoid this cut-through issue.
Okay, and the gate that comes in off of Dunwoody, will that be offset from the public street far enough that people can pull in and turn around?
Do we know the alignment? Madam Chair, staff is reminding me that that's ACHD policy, so yes, it will be.
I just wanted to verify that you were planning on doing that. Okay, commissioners, questions?
No, I just have a comment. When I first read through this, I had to read through it a couple times because I assumed all of Dunwoody was private because there's so few lots on there. and it's a small road. It's not up to the standard of a regular local road. So it surprised me when I found out actually it's a public road. So maybe that's an area where it just seems to me, rather than having the gate there, you should discuss with them about how they become part of the private development as well. You know, it only serves a few extra additional houses, but that's not before us. I was just in looking at this, all the others neighborhoods have been developed with public roads, but I was surprised this was also a public road.
All right, further questions? Commissioner May, do you have questions or comments?
No, I just have a comment. Since this is so recent, I'm just wondering if perhaps we should have a discussion maybe on deferring so it can be disseminated amongst all the neighborhood. And I really commend your responsiveness in trying to get a quick turnaround with this. And you do seem to have a favorable response to this new plan, but it does seem that a lot of people were not privy to it. So that would just be something I would maybe ask that we consider.
Madam Chair, just a question for you, Mr. Clark. I assume Meridian will sign off on the density at the hearing on April 4th. So if they decide they want it more dense, would that mean the design would change, the road design? Or if they want it less dense, would the road design change? To Commissioner May's concern that if Meridian makes some changes, you're going to have to come back to the drawing board in terms of the design of the road network.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hanson, I would not anticipate that would be an outcome. If something like that were to occur, they would do it as a condition of approval. But I don't expect, we are well within the zoning density allowances here. And, we do, I appreciate Commissioner May's comments. This has been one where, as you've seen, there's been a number of petitions. There's been a lot of folks that are interested. A lot of folks are here tonight and have had the opportunity here to provide comment on it. It would be my suggestion that folks have had notice of it at this point. If they are interested, they've come, they've had a chance to see it, and I think I would suggest that we're ready to move forward.
Commissioner Baker, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I just had one comment, and I guess this would be along with what Commissioner May had talked about. I really don't see this as being the iteration that was presented tonight by the developer is really not that much different than what staff has recommended. The only difference is the connection across, instead of having 3 roads connected across the top or to the north, only 2, and then the third is connected by a pedestrian pathway, which is going to be open to the public. So I believe that this staff recommendation, I guess the question I would have was, how long has the staff recommendation been available to the public?
And we'll have Christy Little answer that question.
Madam President, Commissioner Baker, Commissioners, let me just take a step back for a minute to get us to this part in the process. But I do appreciate, when the developers started planning this project, they came to the Highway District and they know what our policies are, and they attempted to meet our policies to the very letter of what those state. And so when our staff recommendation came out, again, I mentioned that I'd asked the developer to revise the layout just for illustrative purposes for our use and our recommendation, and they did that. So we were notified on Monday that they were going to put together this new layout. Again, I don't see this as an issue. Oftentimes we have hearings and the commission might make a decision different than a staff recommendation, or a developer might be making an appeal of a recommendation. In this case, the applicant was trying to respond to staff's recommendation to the commission. So we have had time to review this. Staff does feel that this layout meets the intent of our policies.
Okay.
Oh, in the report. Sorry, and the report was available on Wednesday of last week.
But not with this.
Thank you.
Not with this.
Okay. Commissioner Goldthorpe, did you have comments?
Nope, but
Questions?
I'll be ready to make a motion when it's appropriate.
Well, I don't know if Commissioner May was going to make a formal motion to defer it, or if that was intended to be discussion, or.
I was intending that for discussion, to just kind of see what kind of.
Good point.
Just with the new
Frankly,
information.
I agree with Commissioner May. I'm a little uncomfortable with this change so close to the meeting date. I mean, I guess we'll see where the other commissioners are, but I'm not particularly comfortable with approving this without it having been sent to, or at least viewed by the rest of the folks that saw the original plan, so. But if someone has a motion,
Madam President, I do. I would move that we approve the request for annexation with a rezone from RUT to R4 with this preliminary plat, but do so on the basis of the new plan that has been presented tonight with the condition that there be full pedestrian and bicycle access for everyone.
just a clarification, bike and pedestrian access where?
Throughout the entire development. For all
Madam President?
Yes, Commissioner Baker.
I'll second the motion if the maker of the motion would just amend his to just state that that pedestrian access as shown on the plan be noted on the plat, that pedestrian and bicycle access is open to the public and needs to be noted on the plat.
Agreed.
And just so we understand what the motion is, you're referring to the pedestrian access to the north and also pedestrian and bike access on the private road through the development?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
Go ahead.
No? Hearing none?
I'll just,
Commissioner Hanson?
I'll just make a comment that, that we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I would have preferred maybe to have a little more detail on the specifics of this new plan, but I recognize it was a concern to address Bristol Heights. And so by not having that connection into Bristol Heights, you pretty much resolve concerns they had about cutting through down over to the school. The fact is there's no collector network in this entire section. That was the testimony that Heath Clark gave. There's no grids. There's a huge difference between the volumes on the internal streets and the external, the arterials. There simply isn't the connectivity now, and it's impossible to create it. You know, we don't do developments, unfortunately, from the middle out with the grids that we used to do. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Connectivity and cut through is often used interchangeably. I represent a part of the city that is very old. Those roads were laid out in grids, and these conversations don't happen. People drive in front of their house who don't live in their neighborhood all the time, but that's the nature of a gridded network. So we're stuck with this, and it creates burdens. I appreciate the developer came forward and said, okay, to the extent that we will, it's basically like a private home with 45 private homes. It's a private driveway, I mean. There were some concerns raised, and looking at the record, I think I'd like to see the developer participate with the neighborhoods to the extent that they could help them on speeding issues and on the quality of some of those roads leading into it. Barclay was designed in a way, is that the right name? Yeah, Barclay was designed under our old widths. It's a local road, yet it's 36 feet wide, and I can see people coming through that gate and flooring it, and that's not safe. But then they get on the other collector roads in Bristol Heights, and they're also wide. You can almost land a plane on them. The speeds is what kills kids. And when people are driving through there, I don't, we can't, it's not on this particular property owner's area, but I know with this developer and these folks who've worked with them, they may come up with some ideas to help develop some speed controls so that the concerns that are raised by the neighbors can be addressed while this last piece of internal property is developed, and we can address the concerns. But yeah, we're pretty much limited in what we can do. And this, while I appreciate the discussion about our complete streets policies and connectivity, this really is not that relevant when you're dealing with the way this is designed.
All right, any further discussion? Well, I'm not going to support the motion. I have some concerns about how well this has actually been vetted with the public, and I also don't think this really meets our policy with connectivity. These substreets were put in for a reason, and I don't think they are being used in the manner that we generally intend for them to. So I'm not going to support the motion. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, those opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay. So motion passes 3-2. That concludes our regular agenda with the exception of public communications. Is there anyone who would like to address the commission on another topic? Seeing no volunteers, meeting adjourned.